5 signs your wife might be a covert narcissist. Look, if you are married to what you suspect might be a covert narcissist woman, and she doesn't scream, rage, or openly disrespect you, but you feel confused, emotionally drained, and quietly diminished, then this episode is for you. Because the most damaging female narcissists are not the loud ones. They are the covert narcissist ones. The ones who look caring, who sound reasonable, and who make you feel like the problem. And most men don't realize what's happening because nothing looks bad enough. There's no single explosion, no obvious villain, just a slow erosion of self-trust. So if you are dealing with a covert narcissistic woman, your experience probably sounds a lot like this. Welcome back to the Narc Free Man Podcast. I'm Phillip Dugas, and I hear from men every week who say some version of the same thing. She's not abusive, but I feel like I'm disappearing. And they tell themselves she had a hard, traumatic childhood, or she's just sensitive, or maybe I really am the problem, like she says. And because they are good men, they're empathetic, they're self-aware, they turn inward. And that's where covert narcissism thrives. You see, a covert narcissist doesn't dominate through force. She dominates through emotional positioning. Let's walk through what that actually looks like. Sign number 1 is she becomes the victim when you speak up. And here's how it usually starts. Let's say you finally bring something up. You're calm, respectful, choosing your words carefully, and maybe you say something like, hey, when this happened, that really hurt me. And within minutes, everything flips. Now she's overwhelmed. She's hurt. She's misunderstood. And the conversation is no longer about your concern. It's about her pain. So you'll find yourself apologizing, not because you did anything wrong, but because you don't want her to spiral. So over time, you learn this lesson that speaking up creates chaos and staying quiet keeps the peace with her. And that's all conditioning, guys. Sign number 2, reality feels different after every argument with her. This one is subtle and devastating. So after your disagreements, you remember things one way and she remembers them completely differently. She's calm, logical, and certain. And because she sounds so sure, you start questioning yourself. Like, did I misunderstand that? Or did I overreact? Or did I imagine that? This isn't forgetfulness. This is gaslighting. And over time, it trains a man to distrust his own memory. And once you don't trust your perception, you start relying on hers. That's power. Sign number 3 is affection becomes conditional. Think back to the beginning of your dating phase. The affection felt natural, right? But slowly patterns form. When you agree with her, things are peaceful, right? But when you set a boundary, she grows distant. Not angry, just cold. So you adapt and you start choosing words carefully or avoid certain topics with her and like swallowing things that matter to you. And that's how men lose themselves quietly. Sign number 4, your emotions are treated as flaws. For example, when you share how something made you feel, you don't receive empathy from her. You receive labels: too sensitive, too insecure, too reactive. Her emotions, always valid. So over time, you learn that her feelings matter. Your feelings are liabilities. So you'll shut down because it feels safer. Sign number 5 is you feel lonelier with her than without her. And this is the moment that usually breaks men. They realize they feel more at peace alone than sitting next to their wife, because intimacy requires safety and safety requires honesty, and honesty no longer feels safe. Now that loneliness isn't accidental. It's the outcome of a dynamic where your inner world was never protected. So if you are listening to this so far and thinking, man, that's That sounds uncomfortably familiar. I want you to hear this. You are not weak, you are not crazy, and you didn't miss something obvious. You were dealing with a pattern that's subtle by design. Clarity always comes before change. Now let's talk about what to do once you see the signs that she is a covert narcissist. Like once you start seeing these patterns play out. Now, the first mistake men make after seeing the signs is they rush to explain it to her. They say things like, I think you might be a narcissist, or I have been reading about gaslighting, or this relationship dynamic isn't healthy for us. And what happens? She denies. She deflects. She reframes you as the problem or as the narcissist. So here's the first rule. Clarity is for you, not for convincing her. You don't need her agreement to move differently. And stop seeking emotional resolution from her. Once you see the signs, something critical has to change internally. You must stop expecting emotional repair from the person causing the injury. Now, this doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming realistic. A covert narcissistic wife is not wired to validate your inner experience or sit with accountability or repair emotional ruptures consistently. The moment you stop expecting that, something shifts. You stop chasing closure, you stop explaining yourself, and you stop reopening wounds, hoping this time will be different. This is the beginning of emotional sovereignty. And next, I want you to move from reaction to observation. This is where power starts to return. So instead of reacting emotionally, you begin observing patterns, not judging, not escalating, just noticing. You watch how she responds to boundaries, how she handles disappointment, how she reacts when she doesn't get emotional access to you, and you stop fixing her reactions. And this is hard for good men because empathy is your default, but observation without rescue is not cruelty, it's clarity. Next, I recommend installing small, non-dramatic boundaries with her. And this is where men often overthink things. Boundaries don't need speeches. They don't need ultimatums. They don't need emotional explanations. A small boundary sounds like, I'm not available to talk about this right now. I'm going to take some space and come back later. Or I disagree and I'm okay leaving it there. And then you stop talking. What matters isn't the boundary, it's how she responds to it over time. Respect builds safety. Punishment reveals control. Patterns tell the truth. Now, here's how to rebuild self-trust outside the marriage. One of the deepest injuries men carry from covert narcissism is loss of self-trust. You stop trusting your perceptions, your emotions, and your instincts. So recovery from narcissistic abuse cannot happen inside the same dynamic alone. This is where you need to start journaling to anchor reality and get trusted outside perspectives. Go to therapy or get coaching with someone who understands narcissistic dynamics. And not to be told what to do, but to hear themselves think clearly again. Clarity is not loud, it's steady. Next, I want you to detach from the need to be understood. This is one of the hardest shifts, but also the most freeing. You stop needing her to understand your pain or validate your experience or admit wrongdoing. You don't suppress your truth, you just stop submitting it for approval. And when you do this, something profound happens. Her emotional leverage weakens and your nervous system stabilizes. You feel less reactive and more anchored. This is how men reclaim their center. Now, let me be very clear. This episode is not telling you to stay with her forever or to leave her immediately or to confront her aggressively or to diagnose her clinically. It's telling you to regain yourself first. And from that place, decisions become clearer, not emotional, not rushed, and not fear-driven. And once you see the signs, once you stop doubting yourself, once you regain your footing, one question starts pounding in your chest. What do I do now? Do I stay? Do I leave? Or do I hold position and prepare? Most men rush this decision and pay for it emotionally, financially, or relationally for years because the right decision made at the wrong time is still the wrong decision. Now, the real fear is not just losing the marriage or hurting the kids or being alone. It's this. What if I make the wrong move and regret it for the rest of my life? Narcissistic dynamics create decision paralysis because you have been trained to doubt yourself. Staying does not mean hoping she changes or enduring the abuse silently or becoming smaller to keep the peace because they don't change. Now, option 2 is to leave her. Now, I know leaving is often romanticized as freedom, but leaving impulsively can be just as destructive as staying too long in a toxic relationship because men who leave too early often carry guilt, miss their children deeply, will second guess themselves, and they get pulled back emotionally. But leaving works when you have regained emotional neutrality and you are no longer seeking validation and you are prepared legally, financially, and psychologically. You are not leaving to punish, but to protect your future and your kids. And the strongest exits are quiet, prepared, and calm. Now, is there a third option? Well, this is the path most men should take first, but rarely hear about. It's strategizing, which means you don't announce decisions, you don't confront prematurely, and you don't escalate dynamics. You gather information, you stabilize emotionally, you rebuild your self-trust, you strengthen your support system, you create options for yourself. That is self-leadership. And the strategy phase gives you leverage, not over her, but over your future. You are ready to choose when you can imagine staying or leaving without panic. You are not trying to prove anything, and you no longer need her to validate your reality because clarity feels calm, not urgent. Now, here's what all three paths have in common. No matter which option you choose, one thing must happen first. You reclaim yourself, your nervous system, your confidence, and your sense of identity. Without that, no choice will feel right. With that, any choice becomes survivable and often empowering. This isn't about rushing, it's about choosing from strength. And if you have made it this far, you are already doing that. Now, let's transition, and I'm going to answer a few questions men send me privately, the ones they are afraid to ask out loud. First question is, what if I'm the problem? What if I really am selfish? Or what if I really am emotionally unavailable? What if I caused this? Here's the truth. Healthy self-reflection leads to growth. Pathological self-blame leads to paralysis. So if you are constantly reviewing your tone, apologizing for your feelings, or trying to be better just to keep the peace, you are not avoiding accountability. You are over-functioning in a one-sided dynamic. In healthy relationships, accountability is shared. In toxic relationships, blame is outsourced. So if you were truly the problem, you wouldn't be asking this question. You'd be defending yourself. The second question is, why do I miss her even though she hurt me? This one confuses men deeply. It's, how can I miss someone who made me feel so small? The answer is simple, but not easy. You are not missing her. You are missing the relief from anxiety that came when things were calm. That's a trauma bond. Your nervous system became conditioned to associate her approval with safety. So when distance happens, your body panics. Even your mind knows better. Missing someone doesn't mean they were good for you. It means your system adapted to survive. And healing happens when you stop judging that response and start regulating it. The third question is, what if I leave and regret it? Well, this fear keeps men frozen for years. They'll think, what if I destroy my family? What if I realize too late that I was wrong? Look, here's what matters most. Regret comes more often from reactive decisions than from patient ones. You don't decide from fear, you decide from stability. That's why we slow this process down. That's why we rebuild clarity before action. You don't need certainty, you need self-trust. And self-trust returns before decisions, not after. Question 4 is, why does she seem fine while I'm falling apart? Now this one cuts deep. She's calm, but I'm unraveling here. Or how is she okay while I'm struggling? Because narcissistic regulation is external. She stabilizes by controlling the narrative. You destabilize because you internalize conflict. This doesn't mean she's winning. It means you are waking up. And awareness always hurts before it heals. You are not behind, you are ahead. Question number 5 is, am I a bad person for wanting peace? Let me answer this clearly. No, wanting peace doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. What does harm men is believing they must sacrifice themselves to prove loyalty. Love does not require self-erasure. Commitment does not require silence. And strength does not require suffering. If staying costs you your identity, that's not virtue, that's damage. Question number 6, what if I stay too long? This question usually follows the others. What if I wake up one day and realize I lost myself completely? You don't need to rush, but you do need to stay honest with yourself. Men don't lose themselves all at once. They lose themselves by postponing truth. Clarity now prevents regret later. If any of these questions felt personal, let me tell you something. Again, I always say this, but I want to constantly remind you that you are not broken, you are not weak, and you are not failing. You are navigating something most men were never taught how to name, let alone survive. And the fact that you are still asking questions means your identity is intact. I wrote my book, The Narcissistic Wife, for men who might be dealing with a female narcissist. The Narcissistic Wife is available now on Amazon. So if this episode resonated with you, start by reading that book. Until next time, stay strong, stay steady, and stay narc free.